Well, hello everyone. I'm Jill Bloom, publisher of Roofing Contractor, Walls and Ceilings, and Building Enclosure. Welcome to another Legal Insight video with Trent Cotney, the CEO of Cotney Construction Law. Trent, it's always an honor to visit with you. Art Eisner and Rick D'Amato and I are all here to ask some great questions. And wow, I mean, Trent, what a week. As we're recording right now, we still don't have an official winner of the presidential election. And I think it's been a nail biter for everybody. But what was your impression of the election night?
Well, Jill, Rick, Art, it's a pleasure to be here. And Jill, you hit the nail on the head. It is 2020, right? I mean, it is. Here we are. It's days after the election, and we still don't know who the president's going to be. And I anticipate that's going to be the case for the next few weeks. So, what I would tell our listeners is, you're not going to get an answer anytime soon. And what happened on Tuesday night was what we kind of anticipated here in our offices. And, we have a government affairs and lobbying team. We work closely with them, and also Craig Breidup, who is our lobbyist nationally. And we had a lot of access to information. I think if the one takeaway from this election, regardless of what side you're on, is that there's going to be a lot of pollsters that are out of jobs, because this election cemented that, put the nail in the coffin, that those polls, you can't trust them. Okay. And that's what I think this election showed. That's the biggest takeaway right now for me. There's a lot of very interesting things that happened result wise, and I'm sure we'll get into that. But yeah, just crazy couple of days here. So,
Trent, what are contractors reacting to, and what are they calling you about and asking you about since Tuesday?
So, Art, there was a lot. Obviously, everybody is concerned about who's going to be president. Regardless of what side of the fence you're on, you want your person to win, right? For me, that is important. That's important because it shapes a lot of the executive agency policy that impacts construction. So that is something that we're watching as well. But there were a lot of things that were decided Tuesday night that we're getting calls on. So I'll give you a few examples. Here in Florida, they passed a minimum wage increase that's going to go gradually up to $15 an hour to September of 2026, I believe it is. It's going to be $10, and then every year it goes up $1. That is going to affect construction. Okay, it's going to hurt construction. And here's, again, taking politics out of it, I'm just telling you how it affects construction. So most roofing contractors, or contractors in general, most of them are hiring above that level, but there are a few that are still hiring at the 15 level or slightly lower. If you're already having to compete for workforce, if you've now set that as the base, and you're having to tell somebody out of high school that they could work for $15 at McDonald's and air condition, or work $15 on a roof, which one are they going to take? So what's going to happen is the baseline has gone up. That means wages across the board are going to go up. Okay, so you can expect increased cost of labor here in the state of Florida. It's going to have a big impact. Okay, that's one of the things that I was concerned about. And what's very interesting about that vote, Art, is that this state went red. Okay, they voted for Trump, but 60.8% voted to approve that minimum wage hike. Clearly, somebody didn't do a good job of advertising against it, if that was the case, because it didn't match how the state went. Some other very interesting things that came out. I don't know if you guys saw in Oregon, they voted to decriminalize the possession of all drugs, cocaine, heroin, you name it, in small amounts. Okay. They also voted to allow for what I call magic mushrooms. I don't know what the actual term is, but for medicinal purposes. So we've had a slew of calls from contractors in both Oregon and Washington trying to figure out, what do I do with this? How do I revise my employee agreements and my safety manual to deal with this mess? Okay. And those are the types of questions that we're getting. There was a lot of concern about Proposition 24 in California that has further restricted privacy for websites and digital data. So a lot of the contractors out there that use cookies, that use retargeting, things of that nature, this is going to have a big impact on that. And something else to keep in mind is that every major social media giant is based out of California. So haven't fully digested all the implications there, but those are the questions that I'm getting right now. A lot of concerns about what the future is, the uncertainty. It doesn't sit well for construction right now.
Wow. Trent, before we jump back into the presidential election, I do want to follow up. So for contractors in Oregon, does this mean, can they even enforce a no drug policy in their manuals? I mean, this is more than just a quick or easy update.
Yeah. So generally speaking, you're always allowed to prohibit recreational substances from a workplace, right? So that guidance hasn't necessarily changed as a result of this change. What is more concerning to me is that if for some reason you're still one of the holdouts that has a completely drug-free workplace in Oregon, you can expect a lot more positives. Because one of the things that I've seen over and over again is you're telling the crew doesn't understand that they can't use. They don't understand that, even though it should make sense that you shouldn't be using. They don't understand that all the time. And it's not just crew, it's your office staff, it's everybody else. So there's this dichotomy between this sort of lax regulation as it relates to drug use and what's required for the job. Now, 99% of the time, safety always wins out over lax drug regulation. Okay. And it's just a matter of time before all the US is recreational marijuana. We saw, for example, South Dakota, New Jersey, Arizona, and I think Montana went recreational. And then there were a couple of states that moved to medical. Okay. It's just a matter of time before it's all recreational. So this doesn't mean that the game ends. It just means that the game changes. And what contractors really need to focus on is tweaking your policies, but engaging in active toolbox talks to explain what the law is and explain that doesn't necessarily impact the guidelines that you have in the office. It's about educating and making sure that your employees understand it's not, hooray, let's go get magic mushrooms during our lunch break. It's, hey, you're still on the job, Saturday, knock yourself out, but while you're here, this is an issue.
Wow, so a lot to keep your eyes on as that situation develops over the next few months. Back to the presidential election, we are already seeing some legal challenges in certain states. What can you touch on some of those? And is there a particular state where you're focusing on the legal challenge? Because you did say this could work its way for a few weeks before we actually have an official winner.
Yeah, and as we've seen in the past, I'm not necessarily a soothsayer, but I would say that based on what I am seeing now, it will be weeks before we know what happened. And the reason I'm saying that is because there are active legal contest suits that have been filed in Nevada and Wisconsin and Michigan, I believe in Pennsylvania. And the Trump administration already had all this lined up. Okay, they had their legal teams ready to go. My guess is in Florida, Michigan, and Pennsylvania, because those were the areas that were targeted, maybe Ohio. Okay. Again, nobody ever thought Nevada would be in play, but what you need for these cases, just to give you sort of a high level overview, is you need the factual support to back up the challenge. So, for example, they filed a suit in Georgia alleging, that absentee ballots that were thrown out were included with the vote, or there was some kind of voter fraud based on what a ballot witness saw. That's the kind of stuff that they're looking for. Is they're looking for voter fraud. So it's very difficult. What we saw, remember way back when to Gore Bush, right, and the hanging chads and all that kind of stuff. There's really two ways to kind of go about doing this. One is to get ballots thrown out, okay? And if you get ballots thrown out, that may help you get to where you got to go. Okay, the other way is to allege voter fraud that gets certain ballots thrown out or that gets a recount or whatever it might be. So in Wisconsin, for example, he's already demanded a recount because of how close the vote tally was. And it's going to be strung out. You're not going to see this for a while. I would be shocked. I mean, the courts will take this on an expedited basis, But even with that, I just think it's going to be drawn out for a while.
Okay, well, and having said that, the longer that this goes, does it create potential business problems for contractors?
I think so. And the reason I think so is just think about everybody that's on this line right now. Think about, you're stressed, right? I mean, you can't help but not be stressed. You go home, you turn on the news, everyone's like, oh my God, what's going on? All your friends, social media, everybody's talking, whether you're for Biden or for Trump or for Kanye or whoever, everybody's like, oh my God, what's going on? At the end of the day, that uncertainty creates angst, and we're already seeing some protest happen. Okay. The more that this thing festers, the more rhetoric that you start seeing, I would anticipate that there's going to be more unrest. Okay. And when that happens, contractors need to be acutely aware of their job sites. Okay. Especially if you're in urban areas. We've already seen protests in Chicago and Minnesota, obviously Portland. But one of the things that I would really recommend is that you look at securing your job sites, you check your insurance to make sure that you're protected. You come up with an evacuation plan, an EAP, emergency action plan for your crew to get them out of a job site in the event that there is a protest, because a lot of these things can spark like that, right? You might be in the middle of the job. It doesn't have to be at night. It could be during the day. You just need to think along those lines and be prepared, because I think ultimately, this will resolve itself. Okay, one way or the other, it's going to resolve itself. I hope sooner rather than later. I'd love it to be resolved this week. Don't really think it's going to happen. Okay, don't know. But at the end of the day, be prepared. Make sure your job sites are prepared. Think smart, because you never know what's going to happen.
All right, Rick, I'm going to turn it over to you now.
Thanks, Art. And Trent, thanks again, as always. Good to see you, and thanks for sharing with us. And thanks also to all of our listeners and viewers. If they're going to have some protests in Portland, at least they're going to have a good time, because now they have many more drugs available to them to enjoy. Sorry, I just couldn't help make that comment. The presidential race is really important, but there's a whole lot going on in the congressional races, in the House and Senate, both. And after all, they do hold the purse strings, and that becomes important, especially now we're waiting on some kind of a stimulus. Give us your take on some of these congressional races, some that might be important to the roofing contractors.
Sure. And so one of the things that I'm kind of aware of about myself is I know what I'm good at and I know what I'm bad at, right? And I try to surround myself with people that are a lot smarter than I am, like you guys, for example. I've got a lot of really good friends that are in the financial industry, okay? Financial analysts, people a lot smarter than I'll ever be. And one of the things I talked to them about before the election is I said, what do I need to know as an investor to make sure that I don't lose all my money after this election? And this guy that I trust very well, he said, look, the market does not care who is in office. The only thing the market cares about is that the Republicans control the Senate, okay? Because Wall Street loves gridlock. And that's what we're seeing right now. That's why the market is doing really, really well. I haven't seen what it's doing today, but the last few days it's been doing really well, because it looks right now, I believe the Republicans will control the Senate. What's interesting is the House actually lost some of the Democrats that were in office. There's been some suggestion that Pelosi's position may be up for grabs as a result of how this election turned out, regardless of whether Biden wins or not. If you look at all the metrics, despite everything that was put against Trump, he did incredibly well in a lot of different states and in the popular vote. Even though he's behind, I think last I saw 2 or 3 million, it's still a lot more than anybody anticipated on the blue side. So I think what you're going to see on that side of things is I think you're going to see a shakeup. Okay. And I think they're going to have to make some adjustments and changes, because Republicans still control the Senate right now, and the amount that Democrats control the House has reduced. What does this mean for contractors? Okay. For contractors, it means that it should be business as usual. Okay, Mitch McConnell has already said that he really wants to pass a stimulus by the end of the year. Okay, something, and that is also something that Wall Street likes. Okay, I hope that something like that can happen. I think in order for that to happen, a lot of this uncertainty has to be removed. Okay, and I don't know, I don't know if we'll see what happened in Bush Gore, or if this is going to be a longer drawn out process. Ultimately, I think that it will be business as usual from the legislative standpoint. From the executive standpoint, that's where I think contractors need to watch out, because there are a lot of regulatory agencies that fall under that executive branch that directly impact construction. Okay, among them is OSHA, wage and hour, Department of Labor, immigration, all of those types of things, as well as, a lot of the infrastructure that will be implemented, even though the packages will come from the legislature, ultimately the implementation, oftentimes you see from the executive branch. So that's what I would focus on right now, is big picture. Granular doesn't matter as much as it does who has ultimate control.
Well, thanks for that, and we will obviously all keep an eye on those races. By the way, there is a pandemic going on right now. So back to COVID-19. It's been taken off front page, but it's still out there, and it appears, from everything we're hearing from the experts, is that as we move into winter, we're going to be anticipating some spikes in cases and everything that goes along with it. Any new advice for contractors in the lead-in to the emergence of another wave?
Yeah, get ready. And it depends on what state you're in. I know New Jersey has said that they were thinking about shutting down again. I know New York the same way. So Michigan, you guys, I don't know. I think you should be prepared for that. Okay. And one of the things that concerns me, Rick, is obviously this isn't making any of the news now, right? Everybody's focused on the election, but it's going to get really bad. It's going to get bad. And then I saw recently that, I don't know if you guys saw this, but in Denmark, they're going to kill 17 million minks. Who knew that Denmark had a mink thing? But they have found a COVID strain that has modified, that has come from their mink farms in Denmark, and it has infected 12 people. Now, I don't know all the ins and outs of it. All I know is that it is $787 million worth of minks that they're destroying. That suggests to me that there's something that really caused them concern enough to take such drastic measures. So one of the things that we saw early on with COVID-19 was that it mutates quickly. Okay, and my concern is, the longer this thing plays around, the more time you got to mutate. So instead of having, a 1% or less lethal rate or whatever it is, if that thing jumps up to 10, we're in a whole different world, right? And that is what I'm concerned about. So I would say to contractors, be prepared to go back to where we were in March or April, as far as regulations and tightening of restrictions and things of that nature. Take a lot of precautions. Even now we had here in our office, we had an expert come in. We got a big case coming up. He's going through stuff, and I'm masked up. I'm not taking any risk, even though we're in Florida where you can do whatever you want. I'm playing it safe. And that's my message to contractors is, politics aside, it's not worth going down for a few weeks, regardless of whether you're hospitalized or not. It's just not worth it. So take whatever precautions you can, because it is going to continue to spread, especially during the cold months.
Good advice. Thanks, Trent. Back to you, Art.
Okay, thanks. Trent, I did want to cover a couple headlines from roofingcontractor.com over the last week. You've been a keen observer of Tesla and their market share in their presence in the roofing market, I should say. Your thoughts about their reports of an extremely strong third quarter and what that may mean going forward for 2021.
Tesla is a very unique company. It really is. And, Elon Musk, clearly a visionary, he's got his quirks. But from a company side of things, their products are great. I mean, they make some really interesting products. I think that some of the optimism that you saw coming out of Tesla is some of the same stuff that we're looking at here strategically. And that is, I think renewable energy is going to be big next year. Okay. I think at some point, whether it's solar, it's wind, it's, any number of things, kinetic energy, all these other various forms of energy. I think that it's heading that direction. So I think some of the optimism that you're seeing from Tesla reflects that. Again, a lot of it depends on politics. We don't necessarily know what's going to happen, how it's going to be treated, et cetera, et cetera. But if I'm looking at it, I think there is big growth potential there. One of the things that's really interesting is I saw that Tesla is looking to translate its electric, car type system into jets. Okay, that's interesting because one of the biggest overhead costs right now for jets is the fuel. So if you could figure out some way to combine solar with electric, then all of a sudden transportation becomes a lot cheaper, becomes a lot more efficient. That kind of stuff is interesting. I think the solar market in roofing is going to explode. I really think every day that goes by, it becomes more powerful. It becomes more aesthetically pleasing, which has always been a big turnoff. Nobody wants, giant things on the roof. But if you have something that blends in with the roof structure itself, I think Tesla is on the right path when it comes to some of that.
Got it. So the optimism isn't just for Tesla alone. You're saying the entire solar market can really stand to gain here. Conventional wisdom may be that during a pandemic, solar may be looked at it as a luxury, something that a lot of contractors won't necessarily even want to pitch to homeowners that are price conscious, but the opportunity is there.
Yeah, I think, again, politics drives renewable energy. So you need to, regardless of whether it's on a state or federal level, you need to know where you're playing, right? If you're in a state that loves oil and gas, God bless you. If you're in a state that really, embraces renewable energy and is looking for opportunities, great. We represent contractors right now. Their sole business model is to go to governments and say, hey, I can retrofit your lighting. I can add this, that, and the other. It will cost you $5 million to do it, but you will recoup that in 5 years and continue to save $10 million over the next 20. Okay. And it's an easy sell. And there's a lot of, energy guarantee savings type contractors that are out there that are recognizing that this is sort of the future where things are going.
Right. We've also dedicated a lot of coverage to how roofing contractors are helping veterans around the country. You've been part of this industry for a long time, Trent. What are you impressed about? What are you seeing now as far as roofers stepping up to help our military heroes?
So great coverage by you guys, by the way, tremendous coverage. And roofing and support of the military have always gone hand in hand. We have here with our local association, I actually got a meeting later today with them. We do charity roofs for vets every year. We haven't had one since COVID, but we try to do one every year. And we work with a great local outfit, Black Dagger, out of SOCOM, that supports vets. One of the things that I think I saw in your coverage and that I know from the industry is there's a lot of roofers that are vets. There are a lot of people that have come from the military, have family from the military. And I think that support will always be there. It's something that is needed. We need some positivity. So that's why I really enjoyed y'all covering that, because I was like, yes, thank you. Something, it was good to see it.
All right. Appreciate that, Trent, as always. Jill, back to you.
Yes, thank you, Trent, so much. We do at Roofing Contractor Magazine love to cover really great stories about the positive things that contractors are doing, because we know in the long run that's always going to be something that's going to help them, give them nuggets about how to improve their business. So thank you for pointing that out. We needed something else positive to hear today. Right. Thank you to everybody who's watching. And if you have any questions, make sure you reach out to roofingcontractor.com or wconline.com. And while you're there, make sure you sign up for our free e-newsletters and our free digital editions. If you have any questions for Trent, you can always reach out to him at cotneycl.com. And please, everyone, make sure you stay safe and healthy, and we look forward to seeing you next time.
Hey!